guys? Welcome back. Hold My Helmet Football Podcast. I'm your host, Will Reichling. Divisional round of the NFL playoffs are in the books. We are now on to the conference championships. We have Bills, Chiefs, and then we have Commanders, Eagles. NFC East showdown, AFC top 2-3 quarterback showdown, the AFC. It's going to be crazy. Going to be crazy for sure. But let's get into the divisional round first. Starting with Ravens-Bills, the matchup that we've all been waiting for. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Who's the real MVP? Neither of these two quarterbacks necessarily showed that in this game, but you saw the way the Bills played, the way Sean McDermott coached them, that they only had 8 turnovers all season. 8 turnovers. So they come into this playoff game, they win the turnover battle, they're probably going to win the game, and that's what happened here. Lamar Jackson, yes, he played well in the second half, but that first half, terrible interception, like just awful. He even admitted it. He didn't see the safety there, overthrew Bateman. Awful interception. Then, bad snap, picks it up, recovers, and then he's holding the ball out here, fumbles it. Like, you have to be smarter than that. You cannot turn the ball over willy-nilly in the playoffs, because if you do, you're going to lose the game. In the regular season, you can overcome having 3 turnovers against the Raiders, the Jets, the Jaguars, but in the playoffs, against the Buffalo Bills, who have been red hot all season, you cannot turn the ball over, especially against a team that has had the least turnovers this season. And I think I've heard a stat, I gotta look this up to make sure, that they won every turnover battle in every game this season. Every single game they won the turnover battle. That's honestly pretty crazy. So if you turn the ball over, look, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews with the fumble. You turn the ball over, you're gonna lose the game. Every team this weekend, other than the Chiefs, who are just defy physics, every other game, the team that won the turnover battle won the game in this week. The Eagles won the turnover battle, won the game. The Bills won the turnover battle, won the game. The Commanders won the turnover battle and won the game. So here, look, they played well in the second half. The Ravens were 7 for 10 on third down. They averaged 7.3 yards per play. But, they turned the ball over when it mattered most in the playoffs, which is when it always matters most, and it cost them. I mean, those 2 turnovers were critical turnovers. And for Lamar Jackson, who only threw 4 interceptions all season. 4 interceptions. And if you look at all of those interceptions, none of them were his fault. One was a great play, I think, by the Steelers' corner. The other 3 were either tip balls, drop balls. Every single interception in the regular season thrown by Lamar was not his fault. The one in the first half was his fault. The fumble in the first half was his fault. So, bad pick, bad fumble. That's what's going to happen in the playoffs that causes a loss. That's going to happen. If you're going to lose, it's probably because you lost the turnover battle in the playoffs. So, not even saying Josh Allen deserves the MVP. Lamar deserves the MVP because they both played kind of iffy games. It's not like Josh Allen was lighting the scoreboard up, and neither was Lamar. But, Lamar came back when it mattered most. He's down 1 score, driving down the field. He makes the throw to tie the game on the 2-point conversion. Just unfortunately, Mark Andrews dropped it. So, it happens. It really does happen. So, the one main criticism I have for the Baltimore Ravens is, why did Derrick Henry only have 16 carries? I mean, yes, in the first half, they were stopping the run. They were very effective. But then that third quarter, you had one drive where Derrick Henry just dominated the entire drive. I don't think they passed once on that one drive where Derrick Henry scored a touchdown. So, you have him get only 16 carries. Meanwhile, in that one drive in the third quarter, he dominated. I mean, they were playing well and better in that second half. Lamar was throwing it better in that second half. So it's not even like they were struggling, but they were still trying to pass every play. They were playing better. But, you look at it, the box score at the end of the game, you see Derrick Henry with 16 carries. You would have thought he'd had 25, 26, 36. So it's not even like last year where it's like they should have ran the ball more, took the ball out of Lamar's hands more. But it's almost kind of like, you bring in Derrick Henry for a reason. He was probably a top 5 MVP candidate himself, top 6 at least. I mean, he probably should have gotten more carries, even on that 2-point conversion. Yes, Lamar Jackson made a winning play. He threw, a game-tying play. He throws it to Mark Andrews in the right sideline, right in Mark Andrews' breadbasket, and he drops it. Unfortunately, he dropped it. But wouldn't you give it to Derrick Henry there? I guess Todd Monken was trying to outthink the room. Say that Derrick Henry, okay, everyone's going to be expecting Derrick Henry to run the ball here. And then he's like, why don't I pass the ball here? But honestly, if Derrick Henry ran the ball there, you're probably scoring on that 2-point conversion. So, Tom Monken has this thing in the playoffs where he tries to outthink the room. Last playoffs, other than the second drive, he was like, I'm gonna try and outthrow Mahomes with Lamar Jackson. Then this playoffs, it's like, I don't even have a terrible criticism for Tom Monken in that game. It just was the bad pick and the bad fumble by Lamar and the bad fumble by Andrews, the bad drop by Andrews. It was unfortunate. I also do think strongly that Sean McDermott outcoached John Harbaugh in this game. I think Sean McDermott taught this Buffalo Bills team to not make critical mistakes in the most critical moments. And look, no turnovers again. Josh Allen did not play great in this game. He didn't have to. He just had to not turn the ball over, do what the Buffalo Bills do, and they'll win this game because the Ravens are going to self-implode in themselves. That's what if I'm Sean McDermott, going to the locker room before the game on Wednesday, Thursday before the game, talking to my team, what I'm saying is, look, all we have to do is not beat ourselves. Because Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens in the playoffs, they're bound to make a mistake. At least one mistake. In this game, they made 2, 3, 4. I mean, I guess 4. 3, 1 interception, 2 fumbles, and a big drop on the 2-point conversion. So 4 big mistakes. But Sean McDermott's telling the team, we just need that one mistake from Baltimore. We needed that one mistake that they're going to make, and we're going to capitalize on that. And they did. They did. So Sean McDermott outcoached John Harbaugh in this game. I'm sorry he did, because he showed his team, if I just we get 1 turnover, guys, 2 turnovers, we're winning this game because we don't turn the ball over. We had 8 all season. The Ravens almost had half of that in this game. So it's kind of crazy to think about. Where do the Baltimore Ravens go from here? Lamar, look, I do think Lamar eventually in his career will win a Super Bowl. Will it be next year? I don't know. Will it be the year after that? I don't know. I just don't think he's going to end his career like a Dan Marino type situation where he kind of fades out and never actually gets to the Super Bowl. Well, Dan Marino got to a Super Bowl. It was his second season and he never got back. Lamar, I think, will get to a Super Bowl and eventually win it because he's just that special of a player. He's the best running quarterback of all time. So I think that Lamar will get there. Does he need a new coach? I mean, I love John Harbaugh. He won a Super Bowl with Joe Flacco. He's been very effective with Lamar for multiple years. But again, he was a special teams coordinator. He doesn't coach the offense, doesn't coach the defense, and they make mistakes. This is not like this is a great, I guess in the regular season, it was a well-disciplined team. But in the playoffs, they don't seem like a well-disciplined team. I would keep Harbaugh this year coming up next year, and the year after that. But eventually, it's almost like a Mike Tomlin situation where you're like, we might have to rethink this. Maybe bring in an offensive guy for Lamar, because again, Tom Monken tries to outthink himself in the playoffs. So I think the Ravens are just fine. You just had an unfortunate matchup with the Bills. It was powerhouse for powerhouse. Bills, Ravens, Lamar, Josh Allen, like all-time great quarterbacks. Like, it's just the AFC is so stacked with them. Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow. That 4 right there alone. It's going to be tough sledding for all 3 of those quarterbacks, Lamar, Allen, and Burrow, because Mahomes is going to be in the AFC Championship every year. I mean, he's just showing that. So, great win for the Bills. Tough loss for the Ravens, but I don't think this is the end of the world. I don't think Lamar choked. I just think it was an all-around bad effort for the Ravens, just all around. And the Bills played the perfect game. Josh Allen didn't play a perfect game, but the Bills did. So, great win for the Bills. They're going to have their shot at the Chiefs, and we'll get into my predictions a little bit later in this episode. So, I was going to talk about Packers-Eagles next, but you know what? I'm just going to go straight to the Commanders upsetting the Lions. We'll get into Packers-Eagles a little bit later. The Commanders just completely upsetting the Lions. Jaden Daniels is just... it's funny. I had my quarterback, the top 6 quarterbacks, I ranked them going into the draft. I had Caleb Williams at 1, Drake May at 2, and then Jaden Daniels at 3. I did predict that the Commanders were going to draft Jaden Daniels at number 2, but I was wrong. Jaden Daniels is the best quarterback out of this draft, and it's not even close right now. He maybe numbers-wise, he didn't have the best regular season for a rookie, but he's had the best rookie season of any quarterback. He dominated the regular season, had a little bit of a fall-off midway through the season, bounced right back, throwing 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, 300 yards at the end of the season, pushing the Commanders into the 6th seed, and then, beating the Bucs Sunday Night Football on the road, just completely just taking it to the Bucs. Then on Sunday, on Saturday. So on Saturday, Detroit Lions, number 1 seed. Everyone feels like it's their destiny. I feel like it's their destiny. Detroit Lions are going to the Super Bowl. And Jaden Daniels goes in there and silences the Detroit Lions. Even with all the injuries on the Lions defense, put the Lions roster and the Commanders roster next to each other. Who is the better roster, even with all the injuries? It's the Lions by a mile. They have way more offensive weapons. They have the better coordinators. I do think the head coaching gap's slighter than people think. Dan Quinn's been to a Super Bowl. But talent on that team around the quarterback, the edge goes to the Lions. I think the difference in this game was Jaden Daniels is a better quarterback than Jared Goff. And it showed. Jared Goff, 3 huge interceptions. One, he just completely overthrew the guy, took it back for a pick 6. You saw his small hands in play when he got a fumble on a sack. You just saw that Jaden Daniels, like, upside's way above Jared Goff. And a better quarterback with lesser talent can beat a lesser quarterback with better talent. And Jared Goff is a borderline top 10 quarterback. Jaden Daniels is just that special. And Dan Campbell, his coaching starting to come into the question. 4th quarter, 4th and goal, 12 men on the field? Really, Dan Campbell? Really? And maybe the Commanders' offense just couldn't be stopped there. They were probably going to score anyway. But just Dan Campbell sometimes is making questionable decisions. And just not only questionable decisions, just sometimes he just seems, it's like the defense is not organized. And, it's like almost like he choked in the biggest moment again. And now Ben Johnson has signed to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears. Aaron Glenn has signed to be the head coach of my New York Jets. So you're losing both of your coordinators. Could this be a Nick Sirianni type situation? I do love Dan Campbell as a leader. I think he's an elite leader. He's one of the best leaders in the league. He has shown that time in and time out. But now you're losing both your coordinators who are like top coordinators in the league. You could have some slight regression if you're the Detroit Lions. I know your roster stacked. I know you're getting back Aiden Hutchinson next year. I know that this offense can only probably take another step because of all the plays they have on that offense. Jahmyr Gibbs looks like a superstar. But if you don't have that elite coordinator to bring it all together, you might have some slight setback. You've seen it happen. Like I said, look at the Eagles. They started 11-1, and they lost 5 straight. Lost in the wild card round to the Bucs last season. So, Dan Campbell, if you don't have the right coordinators in place, you might be in some trouble. Hopefully they have Brett. If I was Dan Campbell, all of last season, this 2024 season, I would have told myself, all right, Ben Johnson went to interview for the Commanders last season, turned it down. He probably knows that Ben Johnson, this is the year he's going to go be a head coach, because if he doesn't go this year, that clock turns, and next thing you know, you go from the top candidate to like an afterthought very quickly. So, what if the Lions have a bad year offensively next year? You never know. So Ben Johnson knew. And Dan Campbell knew that Ben Johnson was going to be out after the season. So if I'm Dan Campbell, I'm telling Ben Johnson, hey, can you breed the next guy here? Can you just have mentor a guy on the staff that you think's the best guy, and just mentor him? Show him what it's like to call plays and stuff. And if I'm Ben Johnson, I would have done that gladly for that team. I mean, the Detroit Lions kind of made him what he is at this point. So hopefully the Detroit Lions have a guy on the staff, on the offensive staff, that can call plays like Ben Johnson. If Dan Campbell was smart, he would have seen this coming and cross-train. You do it at every job. You cross-train just in case one guy's out, one guy's sick. You have another guy lined up to do the job. That's what you have to do. So hopefully they did that. If they don't, if we see the Detroit Lions bring in an outside guy to be the offensive coordinator, watch out. Watch out, because that means that they didn't have a guy bred to replace Ben Johnson. You want someone to have the same philosophy as Ben Johnson, because what Ben Johnson was doing was working. Maybe there won't be as many trick plays. Maybe there won't be as much wow, but you need a guy similar to the philosophy of Ben Johnson, because that's what was working. So if I'm Lions fans, I'm hoping Dan Campbell did just that. Like I said, Jared Goff, he's struggling in this game. The small hands came to play. Forced fumble on him right off the bat. Terrible interceptions. I mean, the one where he just completely overthrew the guy. If he's not getting 100% protection from the pocket with his offensive line, and he's trailing, he's going to struggle. You saw on the Rams. You saw in the Super Bowl. I just don't know Jared Goff's a guy that's going to get you to the Super Bowl and to win a Super Bowl. He's gotten you to a Super Bowl if you're the Rams, if you're Rams fans. But on the Lions, you had the lead in the NFC Championship game. You could blame that on Dan Campbell. You can't, regardless. He's not gotten you to the promised land. Is this the highest that you're going to get with Jared Goff? Is this the best you're going to see of him? I don't know now. I don't know. I'm not out on Jared Goff. He's the top 10, top 11 quarterback, but I just don't know if he's I don't know if he's a guy that could get the offense on track, or if he's a guy that can get the offense on track and bring him to the next level, make him elite. You know what I mean? I think he's a guy, if you have a capable offense, you have pieces, you could just insert him in, and you could be good. Jared Goff and the Bears, I think, would be just fine. I think the Bears probably could have been fighting for a wild card spot with those weapons. I might take that back because their offensive line was terrible. He also needs a great offensive line. Jared Goff and the Eagles, that would be a Super Bowl contender team. Even Jalen Hurts, yes, his running factor adds something to it, but Jared Goff in the pocket, that's a Super Bowl team right there. He needs those weapons. He needs that line, though. I think we know that about Jared Goff now, but Jaden Daniels is not that. Not that good of a roster this season, and he is in the NFC Championship. I don't think any of us saw this coming, guys. Like, we have to be honest with ourselves. Like, there might be people in my comments saying, I knew this is coming. Y'all are stupid. No, you're just lying. You're lying. So, Washington Commanders are going to be in the NFC Championship game playing against the Eagles, who beat the Packers. And, Eagles got off to a great start in this game. Jalen Hurts with a big-time run. It kind of really showed you. He's got to use his legs more again. When he uses his legs and he's effective like that, there's no stopping the Eagles. But then he got hurt, and he stopped running after that. And then they became very limited on offense. Then the snow started coming down. Sirianni right before halftime, Jalen Hurts takes a huge sack, and he has a timeout. Doesn't call timeout until the last couple seconds to have a Hail Mary. You could have gotten back to the line of scrimmage, either spiked the ball or got to the line of scrimmage, audible, throw the ball into the field goal range, then call timeout. So he could have gotten more points there, but they win the game anyway, so it's fine. The Rams, though, it's like I don't know how to feel about them because I always feel like they're on the cusp of falling off. Because Stafford's old, too many pieces get hurt at the right time, like Puka, Kupp. And then all of a sudden, you look up in the playoff game, and they're about to be in the NFC Championship game. They're down 2 scores. Barkley running for 200 yards and just putting his hand up. 2 big runs by Barkley, like 60 yards, 70 yards. So, Saquon Barkley is the best non-quarterback in the league right now. No question about that. He runs for his second long touchdown, putting his hand up. I'm like, oh, this game's over. I go downstairs with my girlfriend to start cooking food. I leave it on the NFL app on my phone just to be safe. And then I go downstairs, and all of a sudden, Stafford scores. And then they stop him, get the ball back. Stafford, big sideline throw to Puka Nacua. I'm like, holy shit, they're about to do this. They're about to come back and win. Then Jalen Carter makes the sack of the year for the Eagles. Forces 4th and long, game over. Jalen Carter, that Eagles defense... And I know people want to say Nick Sirianni's done a great job there, and he has. His record is one of the best all-time for a head coach. But those 2 coordinators they brought in, Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, this defense, they struggled at points in that 4th quarter. But when it mattered most, Jalen Carter just obliterating the line and getting a huge sack. And it really just shows you this team's complete. The quarterback's the question mark, which is sad because Jalen Hurts was considered maybe a top 5 quarterback 2 years ago. If Jalen Hurts can we actually don't know which state he's into health-wise. If he could be himself and he's comfortable and he's who's going to stop this Eagles team? The Commanders, yes. Jaden, we'll get into this. I think Jaden Daniels already is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts, but the roster comparison isn't even close. So, if the Eagles can just play how they do, they will win. They could win the NFC Championship game, but we'll get into that. The Rams have a lot to look forward to there, especially on that defense. They gotten so many defensive pieces right in the draft. And Jared Verse really showing his overwhelming strength in the game. He was manhandling Jordan Mailata, manhandling him, a star left tackle in the league. And that pass rush is real. I mean, Fisk left the game early, but you even saw from him. He got a huge sack, and then he got hurt after that. But, the Rams have a pass rush. They have some linebackers. They need to add a corner or two. But they really, really, they're a few pieces away too. I mean, they really could be a contender next season if Stafford could stay healthy and play at the level he's still playing at. I still think they need maybe another offensive weapon because Cooper Kupp's fallen off. Kyron Williams is great. Puka Nacua is one of the best in the league. Get another weapon, another lineman. I think you're almost there on defense. So, great job by the Rams. I mean, it sucks. It sucks that you lost that. You almost stole that. You almost stole that game in Philly. I would be a little worried if I'm an Eagles fan because Jalen Hurts' health and just almost losing that game. The Commanders are red hot. They beat you in the regular season, so we'll get into that in a little bit. But that was a close game, and that's fun seeing snow like that all over the place. That was exciting to watch for sure. And it brings me back to my days of freezing my ass off on the field in Little League. And it's funny because I was just a little bitch back then. I'm like, oh, I just want to go home. I want to go in my car because you're 11 and you're getting laid out by 200-pound kids and you're 115 and you're what am I doing? What am I doing? Then you get a little bigger, you start laying some other kids out, you bounce back a little bit, but it's fun playing in snow. Sometimes it's not always freezing cold in the snow. If you ever notice that, sometimes it's snowing and it's just not it's weird. It's almost like when it hits the 20s, it doesn't snow, but it seems to snow a lot in that 30 to 40 degree radius range. It definitely it's exciting though. Even playing in the snow, it's like, and I was watching Saquon run for the two really long touchdowns, the 60 and 70 yarder, and the last one where he was running to give the Eagles a 2-score lead in the fourth quarter with his hand up, and you knew after like the 50-yard line he was gone for the next 50 yards. I was thinking in my head, I'm like, dashing through the snow, because that's what he was doing. He was just dashing right through the snow and scoring those touchdowns. And Saquon just had a great year. If I'm a Giants fan, I probably feel like shit. But, hey, I'm a Jets fan, so I still feel like shit. So, Texans at Chiefs, and, this is the one game where the turnover battle didn't win the game because neither of these teams turned the ball over. The Chiefs just defy logics and physics. Like, they just have this roster that just doesn't make sense and still somehow ends up in the AFC Championship game. This is Mahomes' 7th straight AFC Championship game. He's been a starter for 7 years. 7 AFC Championship games. He has never not made the AFC Championship game as a starter. So we're in elite territory. I already said I think Mahomes is the second best quarterback of all time. I would go Brady, Mahomes, Montana, Peyton Manning, and you can throw a toss-up for 5. I would say maybe John Elway or Aaron Rodgers, but that's my 5 right there. Mahomes is 2. I mean, he's already on pat. Like, if he can win his 4th Super Bowl, he's already at Montana's level, and he's way younger. I think he's the first or second highest passer rating of all time. He's just been, the last 2 years, the numbers have went down, but his regular season numbers have been absurd, and his playoff numbers have been even better. So, you see Trent McDuffie in this game making plays all over the field. I mean, he's an elite corner. I think we knew that last year when he was first-team All-Pro. But I think Patrick Mahomes, might be the best playoff scrambler ever. The biggest runs from a quarterback in the playoffs always seem to come from Patrick Mahomes. I mean, you had the big Steve Young run back in the day, but Patrick Mahomes just seems to have the best playoff runs for a quarterback. Even with Lamar, with Josh Allen, Michael Vick had some playoff moments. He had a big playoff run or two. I think the win in overtime. But Mahomes seems to have these elite moments where he ran a 5.0 40. Just don't forget that. He ran a 5.0 40. That's slow for the NFL. Some people just are faster in real life than in the 40. Like, even me. Like, I think I was like a 4.8, 40, 4.7, 4.8. But I always felt faster when I'm running away from someone because it's like, oh, shit. It kind of gives you more adrenaline when you're running away from someone. I mean, it's definitely different when you're, like, trying to evade someone than when you're just trying to run to a goal. Like, it's almost like you're running forward towards something versus running away from something. It's like, it gives you an extra boost in a way. It almost does for Mahomes here. Like, he becomes faster in these games. And Xavier Worthy, I think he will be a decent player. He has decent hands. He's not just speed. He's made some nice catches this year. He's had some nice routes. So I think he's developing into something. You get Rashee Rice back next year, but we're in this year, right? They're back in the AFC Championship game. They let up some yards to the Texans, but they held them to a lot of field goals. The Texans, because they went for it on 4th down in the fourth quarter, they chose not to. I guess D'Amico Ryans was waving the white flag, and I wouldn't. The defense wasn't playing awful though, and you have a defensive head coach, wouldn't you trust? Like, have some damn faith in your defense that they could stop him if you get stopped on 4th down. But I wouldn't be too disappointed for the Texans. They won a playoff game. I mean, C.J. Stroud looked like C.J. Stroud in the playoffs last year. Look, you lost Diggs for the year. You lost Tank Dell for the year, but you could argue that you didn't have those guys last year in the playoffs. But you're going against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 15-2, trying to three-peat. I mean, I could accept that from the Texans. I wouldn't be out on the Texans. Like, I think they'll bounce back next year. I always said C.J. Stroud was going to have some slight regression in year 2. Defense has got film on you. You're the hunted. You're not the hunters anymore. I kind of saw this coming, so I think we're okay for C.J. Stroud. Let's bounce back next year, put in some work in the offseason, maybe not go on so many podcasts, be a little more quiet, and we'll come back next season for sure. So now it's time for our predictions. AFC Championship game, NFC Championship game. Let's start with the Bills at the Chiefs. The 2 seed at the 1 seed. Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, part 3 in the playoffs. Part 2 in the AFC Championship game. So, it's funny because I actually didn't pick anyone I didn't pick anyone. I really didn't. I've been thinking about this to the wire. I told myself I'm going to decide on screen in the moment. And I don't know. I just think this is the Bills' year. I think this is Josh Allen's year. I think this is Sean McDermott's year. I think this is the year for Buffalo to finally win a Super Bowl. I do feel strongly about the Chiefs in the playoffs. I don't like betting against the Chiefs in the playoffs. I think I picked the Ravens last year in the AFC Championship game, but something feels different about this Bills team. They beat the Chiefs in the regular season. They manhandled them, and they don't turn the ball over. They don't make mistakes, and when Josh Allen needs to make a big play, he'll make a big play. So it's tough here. It's really going to have a lot of ramifications in this game. If the Bills can make the Super Bowl for the first time since the Jim Kelly days, that would be crazy. I really think this is the Buffalo Bills' year, especially with the lines out. They could win the Super Bowl here. I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills over the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's see. Do I pick an exact score? I'm going to go 27-24 Bills. I think the Chiefs keep it close. I think it comes down to the wire at the end, but the Bills make the plays when they have to, and the Bills win this game. So, NFC Championship game. Commanders at Eagles. Let's think about this. The Commanders. The Eagles. The Commanders. Do they have a better... Remove the quarterbacks. Remove the head coaches. Who has the better roster other than the quarterback? The Philadelphia Eagles or the Washington Commanders? The Philadelphia Eagles have a way better roster than the Washington Commanders. It's not even really close. But somehow, I'm going to go Commanders in this game. Why? I think Jaden Daniels is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. I actually think Dan Quinn is a better head coach. I'll say that again. I actually think Dan Quinn is a better head coach than Nick Sirianni. Don't forget, Dan Quinn has made a Super Bowl as well. Dan Quinn has made multiple playoff games. He's made 2 NFC Championship games. Don't forget that Dan Quinn's done it too. And what he's done with this rookie quarterback, rookie owner, rookie GM, and he's the only factor that's had experience in this position before and taking them to the NFC Championship game. Dan Quinn is a leader of men. And guess what? Dan Quinn calls his own plays. Does Nick Sirianni call his own plays? Dan Quinn can call defense. Can Nick Sirianni call an offense? Put Nick Sirianni's play calling against Dan Quinn's play calling. Dan Quinn's going to blow Nick Sirianni out of the water. Put Jaden Daniels against Jalen Hurts in 7-on-7. Jaden Daniels is going to destroy Jalen Hurts. So, I'm sorry. The Eagles fans are probably going to kill me for this, but I'm going to go with the Washington Commanders. I'm going to do that strongly because I think Jaden Daniels, you got something special with this kid. He showed, I know Jalen Hurts left the game and Kenny Pickett came in, but he showed he could beat the Eagles before at the end of the game, running right down the field, throwing the ball right down the field on that defense. That defense didn't change. He doesn't play against Jalen Hurts. He plays against the defense, and that's an elite defense, and he showed that he could put up big numbers against that defense, and he'll do it again. So, Jaden Daniels, Commanders, going to win that game. Ben Johnson to the Bears. Ben Johnson to the Bears. We were hearing the Raiders, Tom Brady for the longest time. And look, if Tom Brady's telling me to come coach his team, I'm going to do it too. But then he probably thought about it. Tom Brady's still broadcasting. He's not going to run this organization. I'm going to go in there and see Mark Davis. So he thought about that, and he's like, I'd rather take Caleb Williams than the Chicago Bears and have to answer to Kevin Warren, even though Kevin Warren's kind of a bit of a prick from what I hear. But look, Caleb Williams needed an offensive-minded head coach to help him grow. So this is a perfect fit. You get Ben Johnson to come in, and this is a little weird because it's a division rival. You're now going to play the Detroit Lions twice a year. And I don't know if you expected to be coaching your division rival, because if you did what I said earlier in this conversation and you groomed a potential offensive coordinator to replace you, now you kind of know what he's doing, though, in a way. So it's like honestly an advantage, because now your defense, you could tell your defensive coordinator, hey, watch out for this, watch for this, watch for that. So there's a couple benefits here, and I think this is the perfect fit for the Chicago Bears. I think this was the best job for Ben Johnson. He didn't want to interview the Jets. That's probably the best roster. This is probably the second best roster with the best quarterback available out of the teams that needed coaches. So this is a great fit. He's going to have a lot of pressure. You have to kind of revamp and revitalize Caleb Williams. He struggles from throwing from the pocket. He looks off receivers too quickly. He's too hesitant. Sometimes he's too hesitant to throw the ball. People said he only had 20 touchdowns, 5 picks. But the only reason he only had 5 picks is he wouldn't throw the ball. He took a lot of sacks. I think he took like 70 sacks because he was hesitant. You need to coach that out of him. You need to coach some confidence from the pocket because he rolled out too quickly too. You saw DJ Morgan frustrated. Keenan Allen got frustrated a couple times. So Ben Johnson has a tough task here. But you have a lot of upside. You could be a playoff team with Caleb Williams. And you're going to have playoff expectation next year. Because with that roster, you're going to have some expectations. You need to go draft a lineman, though. You have the weapons at receiver. You have Swift as running back. Go draft a lineman. You need to give Caleb some help in the line. The defense isn't terrible. So, Ben Johnson to the Bears, I like it. I like it a lot. What I like even more is Aaron Glenn, the former Jet, going back to the Jets. So, this works. I don't hate it. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. So, I might have said I love it, but I don't hate it. As a Jets fan, that means you'll love it because he was a former Jet player and former scout for the Jets. He's a great leader. I think these players are going to respect him. The only questionable thing is why haven't they hired a GM yet? Because you get a GM. What if he doesn't vibe with Aaron Glenn? But they did interview Lance Newmark, the former longtime Lion front office exec, who went to the Commanders to be Adam Peters' right hand man for a year. So Aaron Glenn obviously knows who that is. If you hire him, that works because he was in the Lions front office for a long time. But other than that, like Aaron Glenn, look, he looks like a stud. That Week 18 game against Sam Darnold, he had no players. He had some players back, Anzalone. He had some players back, but a lot of injuries in defense, no depth. And he shut the door on Darnold and shut the door on Darnold staying with the Vikings. It was really a defensive masterpiece by Aaron Glenn. So he can clearly coach a defense. Solid could too, but he did the CEO thing. So I would like to see Aaron Glenn call his own plays. But he's got to get the right offensive coordinator now. But I think this is a leader of men. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers stays. I don't know if he wants to stay. But this is a guy that is going to demand respect. And I think he's going to get respect from the players because he's a former player. One thing that Robert Saleh was not a former player. Greg Olbrich was a former player, but I think Aaron Glenn's more of a calmer leader than Greg Olbrich. Jeff Olbrich. He was more of a rah-rah kind of guy, kind of like Saleh. He was a solid guy. So I love the hires. Ben Johnson to the Bears, Aaron Glenn to the Jets. These are hires that need to be made. They're both the right fits for both of these teams. So that's really it. We're about a half hour in. So thanks, guys. We're going to get to these championship games. It's going to be crazy for sure. And we will talk about our Super Bowl predictions next week. Thank you again. Keep subscribing, and sharing, and following, and supporting me. I love all of it. Comment. Send a comment. DM me to my Hold My Helmet, at Hold My Helmet on Instagram or TikTok. Send me a question. Maybe I'll answer it on the show. Send me a comment. Ask me anything. I really love doing this, and I'm excited to see what happens this week for sure. Take care.